When I was 13, I saw footage of my favorite game, StarCraft Brood War, being played at the World Cyber Games. It was a match between 4U and Android for the title of the entire tournament. Needless to say, I was hooked, and a competitive spirit grew inside me over the following months. I woke up at 6 AM every day before school to play games on the Korean server just to train. I had the dream of one day going pro and competing in a tournament like that myself. Fast forward to a year and a half ago, when a viewer suggested that I should time myself when playing my Pokemon challenges. This gave me the idea that this genre could become a competitive format, and today it becomes a reality. We're going to figure out how fast this little digital duck can go, and one person will earn serious bragging rights as they become the champion of this channel's first ever Pokemon Challenge race. Here's how this competition works. The goal is simple. Playing at 4 times speed, finish the game in the shortest amount of real time. I'll show other metrics like level, game time, and resets at finish, but these won't earn someone the victory. Real time is all that matters. The rules are the same as my regular Pokemon Yellow videos. Only the starter in battle, today it's Porygon, no items in battle except Pokeballs and Pokedolls, no glitches except for the Marowak skip and the badge boost glitch, and no TM32, that's double team, before level 100. Also, there are several other guidelines that I want to note before we get started. Number 1. In Vermilion Gym, the timer is going to be paused from the moment the competitors enter the gym until they're standing beside Surge. This eliminates the RNG of the trash can puzzle. This has a few exceptions though. If they choose to save before Surge, this has to be done on the clock, and if they choose to battle the trainers in the gym, this also has to be done on the clock. Number 2, this isn't a first attempt speedrun. Everyone was allowed to practice as much as they wanted. However, there was one restriction to this, and that's that the footage had to be submitted by February 1st. And yes, this also includes my footage. That way we all had the same amount of time to plan, refine, and practice. Number 3, rapid fire keys are allowed. So I've had really bad RSI in the past from music and also from video games. And honestly, without rapid fire keys, I wouldn't be able to make these videos. My wrists would just fall apart from spamming a key over and over. So I felt it was only fair to level the playing field and let everyone use them as well. And fourth and finally, everyone gets to use a perfect Porygon, so stat randomization is not going to impact the results. The GameShark codes that we used to do this are in the description as well, so that you can use them if you feel like playing your own Pokemon challenges. Some of the participants asked some good questions before starting just to clarify the rules, and here are those questions and my answers. So, number 1, are repels allowed? Yep, they are. Number 2, is skipping the bike allowed? It is not. If you want to use Cycling Road, you need to obtain the bike through the regular means of getting the bike voucher. Number 3, is skipping the Rocket Hideout allowed? Yes, but you can also go in there if you want, it's an optional area. Number 4, do we have to play on 4 times speed, or can we just play at a slower speed and then divide our time? Nope, everyone has to play on 4 times speed. There are some really arcane technical reasons why this is the case, but mostly I just want everyone else to feel the pain of bumping into walls. That's really what it comes down to. Number 5, can we use a different emulator? Nope, everyone is using RetroArch for this challenge. Number 6, are save states allowed? No, but they can be used to test and practice before your official playthrough. Number 7, how many playthroughs can we do? Any number. Like you can do 1, some people did that. You can also do hundreds, like me. I got a little bit obsessed. And number 8, when does the timer start and stop? It starts when you press new game at the beginning, and it ends when the text box, the player defeated the champion, completes. So now I need to introduce you to the competitors. Links to their channels and social media are provided in the description and on the right hand side of the screen. Casey DeBoss is our first competitor, and he's just getting started making YouTube videos. He's starting a new series of which type is best for Pokemon Yellow. I can't wait to see Fire type get completely destroyed. The one 825 is a variety streamer and YouTuber. He's very new and just getting started out. I'd suggest to check him out, maybe it'll encourage him to keep going. Super Street 7 is brand new at YouTube. His channel's called Kangasten, and I actually really like the channel name. Anyways, he's working on playthroughs that are based on gym leaders, so his first video is going to be based on Brock's team in Fire Red. I think it's going to be really fun, and I can't wait to check it out. Next, we have Vanman, another Poketuber. He's a fellow musician and another Generation 1 lover. If you're interested in Pokemon Challenge content, he's great because he does a lot of solo red challenges on his channel. Next is Rekka. He's a Twitch streamer. I really hope I pronounced his channel right. He mostly streams Pokemon Let's Plays, randomizers, Nuzlocks, and challenge runs, as well as other games that he's enjoying at the time. I actually had a lot of fun following along with him while he was trying to figure out the Porygon run. Speedrunner 0218 is another YouTuber who does a lot of Pokemon solo speedruns. I was lucky that he signed up for this video because I learned a lot of neat tricks from him. He's got a wealth of knowledge. And finally, of course, I will be competing in this challenge. I'm sure all of you are curious to see how a professional Pokemon Yellow solo runner like myself will match up against these members of the community. I'm also curious and hopeful that I'm going to learn something along the way, and hopefully you will too. Many of the competitors were also in a similar headspace because we used our Discord group to share ideas of how to approach various roadblocks in this playthrough. Doing a Porygon speedrun requires a lot of skill, and we were all willing to share those skills with each other in a wonderfully collaborative way. All great races need an incredible sponsor, and today I have the perfect one, Skillshare. Most of the competitors today are small creators like me, as I've mentioned in the section before, and you also might want to get started making your own videos. A major barrier that I faced when starting this channel was that I had no video production skills. Learning Premiere Pro and Photoshop to edit my videos and design my layouts was one of the first steps that I had to take. Skillshare has so many classes to help you learn these programs. All the classes are ad-free, so you can stay in the zone while you're exploring these new skills. Also, new premium classes are launched every week, so there's always something new to discover. Now, the entire catalog is available with subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. The class topics range from personal growth to developing new skills for business. One of the topics that I also find personally very important is finding self-care and relaxation. It's something that I need to explore despite my favorite TM being rest. The first 1,000 people to use this link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Links in the description. So why did I pick Porygon? Well, it's simple. I didn't. I actually made this poll and you just chose it. But I put it in the poll originally because I thought that it was interesting because of its starting moves, Sharpen and Conversion. These just both don't get very much play in Generation 1. Its move pool is decent but lacks diversity of typing. It also has mid-range stats. It isn't awful, but it isn't amazing either. Also, the fact that it gets both agility and sharpen, giving it two excellent ways to access the badge boost glitch, I thought would make interesting choices in the mid-game. I was so curious to see if everyone was going to use the same strategy or if we would all find our own unique approaches. Finally, because Porygon is obtained in the game corner for a ludicrous amount of coins, I assume that most of you have never used this little cutie. So, I'm giving everyone the opportunity to do so today. I sort of regret this last statement because now, out of every Generation 1 Pokemon, I have spent the most time playing Pokemon Yellow with Porygon. I must have started this playthrough at least 200 times over the past month and completed upwards of 20 complete runs. My girlfriend never wants to see Porygon ever again, mostly because she wants to see me again. To start things off, let's hear from a couple of the competitors about their thoughts when they first started working on this challenge. I was really curious what everyone thought would be the fastest approach right when they started. Personally, I thought that overleveling on Cycling Road, the Dojo, and Silph with a purely offensive moveset, utilizing a very type-diverse move pool, would be the best approach. Speedrunner0218 had some different thoughts though.
At first, when I was looking at Porygon's moveset, figuring out what kind of moves it could learn, I noticed some pretty powerful moves such as Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Psychic. I didn't really think physical moves would be too helpful, such as Tri-Attack or Swift. I realized I would need a badge boost move too. There was Sharpen and Agility. I at first stuck with Agility when routing this thing because it could raise speed, which I needed for some of the fights. But the main problem with Agility is that you can only use it 3 times. So I wasn't able to fully badge boost on some trainers, which made some people really inconsistent. And in the end, I ended up not using some of the moves I thought I'd be using, such as Psychic, or I would use Thunderbolt way later in the game. And I would end up relying a lot on physical moves, so that was really different from my initial strategy.
And here are Vanman's thoughts about how he thought this playthrough would go when he started.
Right, so first of all, I have a very small YouTube channel that's similar to yours where I do challenge runs. And so at first, I approached it just like a first attempt speed run. Right, because like the premise of the videos on my channel are first attempt speedruns, right? And so on my first run through, I blacked out on purpose just to see how far I had to level up to defeat each boss fight, right?
Right.
And so
every boss fight was like minimum battles.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
I guess not minimum battles if you count the blackouts as an extra battle, but
right, yeah.
It was with 0 resets.
Got it.
Right. So like every blackout, I didn't count as a reset because I continued playing the game without saving. And so I would lose money, but I would also gain experience. And so I had to do that a bunch for Blaine, I think. I had to do that for Lorelei, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And using that strategy, I was able to get it to about 120 something, if I'm remembering right.
Okay.
But then from there, I was able to modify that and sort of whittle that down to figure out my level caps, right? So that I would eventually find out exactly the minimum level that I would need for each boss battle.
Now, let's get into the race, and I'll just say that I can't mention every cool little trick that these competitors are going to do with Porygon. The video would be like 8 hours long then, and my voice would completely fall apart. Along the way, I am going to try and highlight the things that I think are most important, though. One thing you'll probably have questions about right away is that when the one sends out his first Porygon in the battle against the rival in the lab, it doesn't have perfect health, so like, why is this? This is because the Game Shark codes only modify the Pokemon's max HP, not its current HP. These numbers are stored actually at different memory locations in the RAM. You might think that 1 or 2 HP difference in this fight would matter, but honestly, Eevee rarely knocks Porygon out. It needs to spam tackle or get a critical hit to do so. This happened like 1 time out of all the playthroughs that I did. It's so uncommon. Now, I need to talk about naming conventions. The one is clearly going for the standard no nickname approach. This is actually how I play Pokemon in my spare time, because if you've watched my content, you'll realize how terrible all of my nicknames are. Rekia, Vanman, and Super Street all take the same approach. Casey DeBoss, on the other hand, decides to take the ultra creative approach and nickname his Porygon Fred. His rival's also named Sean, like the rapper Big Sean, so style points awarded. Speedrunner 0218 also decides to go for some style, nicknaming his Porygon Speed. I, on the other hand, take the true speedrunner approach and name myself, my rival, and my Porygon all a single character, A. I do this because in Pokemon Yellow it renders the characters with frames. By having a shorter name, every time the game says like A use tackle, the text is actually going to render slightly faster. This is a tiny advantage at 4 times speed, but I still think that it's worth mentioning. Now the race is really underway, and every competitor is just hoping that on Route 1 it doesn't throw a million sand-attacking level 7 Pidgeys at them. While we're all trying to dodge the wild encounters, I'll take some time and explain Sharpen and Conversion. Sharpen raises your attack by 1 stage, and that's it. Conversion converts Porygon to the opponent's type. So if you're facing a Steel Fairy type Venomoth, then Porygon will become a Steel Fairy type as well. This move is actually the reason that I wanted Skillshare to sponsor this video, so I'm really glad that I got them on board. I felt that it's just thematically perfect. You'll notice that these 2 moves are very useful for Porygon early on. Specifically, Sharpen allows Porygon to make its way past the bug catchers in Viridian Forest at a very low level. The first time Conversion is going to be useful is against Brock. Converting to the Rock type, Porygon will give up its same type attack bonus on Tackle, but it will gain resistance to Rock's normal type moves. So how much leveling is required to face him successfully? A lot of discussion was had about this in the Discord, and I read anything from level 10 all the way up to level 14. The 1-825 tries Brock at level 11, starting just before 7 minutes. This is a high-risk, high-reward strategy. At level 11, Porygon is no longer taking 2 damage per hit from Geodude after its conversion. It actually does take 2 damage per hit when it's level 10. This buys time to fully set up Sharpen. With that complete, Geodude takes a lot of damage, and the one moves on to the Onix with 27 health remaining. Now, this snake is the reason that this fight is inconsistent. Porygon is slower than Onix, so when Brock uses Bide, there's no chance to stall it out completely with Sharpen and take no damage. Each Bide is dealing a total of 8 damage, and making matters worse is the fact that Onix can trap you with Chains of Bind. The one ends up paying for this with 4 resets total, clocking in with a time of 11 minutes and 13 seconds. I'll be showing the top 3 on the right side of the screen, so you can keep track of who's in the lead at any moment in this race. Okay, so let's talk about how I decide to face Brock. I also decide to face him at level 11, and I arrive at him just before 5 minutes. The reason I chose this level to face him is because I've decided that spending my time with my girlfriend isn't my priority. If I lose, I'll just restart the entire run. I've only wasted 5 minutes after all. During the Geodude, I just pray to the Dome Fossil that Geodude is gonna miss and not get critical hits. It misses turn 1, and then turn 2 it gets a crit. Haha, great. I can also miss in crit, of course, the latter of which is bad in Generation 1 because you've set up 6 Sharpens at this point. Normally, I get to Onix with 28 health, but today I've only got 26 left. Luck has not been on my side so far. The snake uses Tackle, gets a 2-turn Bind, and then chooses Bide. I'm really hoping that it's a 3-turn. I spam 2 Sharpens, and it is. This means that I can Tackle on the final turn and actually deal damage to Onix. A 2-turn bide prevents this interaction, and it just can resume attacking on the next turn. Onix takes me all the way down to 4 hit points, and then it uses bide, and I clock in with a time of 5 minutes and 46 seconds. Almost twice as fast as the 1-825. Contrasting the level 11 approach is Casey DeBoss, who faces Brock with Fred at level 13. This is a great alternative approach, and it's far more consistent. The extra HP and attack really go a long way. If I only had time to do one run, or this was a live speed run, this would probably be my go-to strategy. It was actually the first strategy that I used when I was planning out my route, and I love it because I have a thing for consistency. However, the added safety comes at the cost of time. Casey DeBoss clocks in with a time of 10 minutes and 45 seconds. Sitting right between these two approaches is level 12, and Super Street 7 chooses this option. He gets to Brock at 6 minutes and 5 seconds. That's a really respectable time. He's giving me a run for my money. Unfortunately, Brock deals out some truly awful luck and knocks Porygon out, causing 1 reset. But he still clocks in with a time of 8 minutes and 5 seconds, so that's second place. Now, Vanman has the most atypical approach to the early game, and I'm going to let him describe it to you himself.
Really, you want to go into Brock at least level 11, if not level 12. I know that there were some people who were saying that we're going in at level 10, but I have life equity to consider, and I want the Brock fight to be at least somewhat consistent so that I can get past him, right? And so you can go in at level 11, except the thing is, I quickly found out that I wanted Jolteon on the champions team, which means that I have to fight the rival 1A, which in turn means that I'm pretty much inevitable to get to Brock at level 12 anyway, just from fighting that extra trainer.
Right, okay.
So I pretty much just committed to level 12, and if I wasn't quite to level 12, then I would just fight like a handful of extra wild encounters, which didn't actually waste that much time because the rival 1A fight is so experience rich anyway, but it did make Brock pretty consistent.
I think it's a really interesting idea to head back and face the optional rival before Brock. Facing Jolteon in the final fight does provide some interesting advantages for this playthrough. We'll have to wait to see though if it's worth it. Vanman clocks in with a time of 6 minutes and 46 seconds, stealing the second place away from Super Street 7. But how does our final competitor Speedrunner 0218 approach this section of the game? Well, the Lightyear's junior trainer in Brock's gym levels him up to level 11, and then he faces Brock right away. So he's going for the high risk, high reward play as well. Everyone basically has the same strategy against Brock. Use conversion turn 1, set up 6 sharpens, and then use tackle. If the Onix uses bide, then you have to switch into sharpen again, and after that, then you can continue attacking. Speedrunner lives up to his name and clocks in with a time of 5 minutes and 34 seconds. That's the fastest Brock split yet. I'm trailing him by 12 seconds, and Vanman is 1 minute behind me. So that's our top 3 for the first split. But will it continue this way in the Misty split? Let's find out. After Brock, Speedrunner heals in the center and then visits the Pokemart to buy some items. 15 potions, 4 Pokeballs, 2 Paralyze Heals, 4 Antidotes, and he also sells TM34. I guess there's no chance that he's going to go for a bide-only playthrough. I did say that if someone did a playthrough only using bide, I would actually feature it in the video, but no one was that masochistic. Maybe in the next race someone will be though. I challenge you. On Route 3, one of the mandatory trainers poisons Speedrunner's Porygon, and this fight was close, but he ends up pulling through. Now, he takes on this optional lass for experience. She's easy to defeat because Porygon can 2-hit her Rattata and her Nidoran. After that, he also takes on the Jigglypuff trainer. Now, she's part of my routing too, so I want to talk about her. This might be very well the most frustrating battle in this entire run. The reason is that Jigglypuff knows both Sing and Disable. Speedrunner gets his tackle disabled after hitting Jigglypuff once, and then his Porygon gets put to sleep. In Generation 1, Disable doesn't wear off while you're sleeping, so he's stuck waiting and Jigglypuff gets the opportunity to go to Pound Town. Watching this is painful for me, because personally I've lost to this trainer so many times in this run. It's so frustrating. His Porygon wakes up, but tackle is still disabled. Great. The nice thing here though is that Sharpen exists, so he can raise his attack, and then when tackle's finally ready to be used, Jigglypuff goes down in a single hit. Speedrunner arrives at Mount Moon at 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Vanman has a different approach to Route 3. Instead of fighting these optional trainers, he fights only the mandatory ones. This is largely because his Porygon is 1 level higher, because he faced the optional rival in the early game. He also gets poisoned by the second bug catcher, and it's fairly terrifying because this guy has 4 Pokemon. I'm sure that this fight was really scary for him. Porygon gets taken all the way down to red health before it emerges victorious. Because he's a higher level, he skips the Jigglypuff trainer as well, so no heart palpitations for him or lost runs. So the consequence of skipping these trainers is that while his Brock split was 1 minute and 12 seconds slower than Speedrunner, he actually arrives at Mount Moon only 30 seconds behind. My approach to Route 3 is pretty much exactly the same as Speedrunner's. I fight the last with the Rattata and the Nidoran, and then I do fight the Jigglypuff, despite how painful it is. However, I have one small innovation, and I really want to talk about that because I love it. You know how Vanman and Speedrunner got poisoned and it made the fight closer and forced them to heal? Well, I use Conversion to make Porygon a poison type. This dramatically decreases the amount of damage that the Weedle can do to me, plus I can no longer get poisoned. I arrive at Mount Moon at a time of 8 minutes and 5 seconds. Now I'm in the lead. This cave might honestly be the largest section of pure RNG in any solo playthrough, other than the trash cans I guess, but I've removed those today. I do know that you can do a RNG manipulation in here to avoid most of the encounters, but we're not doing that today. And the annoying thing here is that anyone could get any number of encounters. Speedrunner did mention in the Discord once that he got a run with only 4 encounters in here, and that just seems mythical to me, like that can't be possible. I'll summarize how many each of us had to go through when we get to the other side of the cave. Now, I believe that levels are key for the section of the game around Cerulean City. That's because when I was doing my first playthrough with Porygon, I ran into several struggles in that section of the game. The Nugget Bridge rival was able to knock me out because Sandshrew and its pesky sand attacks. After that, there's 2 Lass, and they both have Nidoran female, which both know Double Kick, which is super effective against Porygon. Additionally, there's this guy. Yeah, more on him later. I chose to take time and invest in leveling up Porygon in Mount Moon. I fight the bug catcher to the left of the cave's entrance. After him, I face the nerd, and then I face the bug catcher, and they're both close to the rare candy, which I want to pick up anyways. After that, I face the Oddish Lass and the youngster that follows her. Porygon can't learn Mega Punch, so I don't go down either of the first 2 ladders. I skip the hiker because if you accidentally bump into him, he basically ends your run because he resists tackle. So yeah, that actually happened to me once. It was like the most painful thing ever. After that, I head to the basement floor, and here I face this Rocket. He's right along the way, and it's great for extra experience. It can get scary though because his Zubat has Supersonic, but today I get through it without any issues. My training concludes after I grab the Dome Fossil. This fossil is objectively the worst speedrunning choice, but I want the style points today. Against Jesse and James, my PP is starting to worry me. I used so much of it in the cave, and I'm almost completely out. Sharpen to the rescue though. It allows me to put in a little bit more work with each one of my moves, and I take care of the villains. So the top 3 have made it to Cerulean. Vanman had 10 encounters, and Speedrunner and I had 8 each. In Cerulean City, we all have to make a choice. Do we face the rival or Misty next? Vanman chooses to face the rival right away at level 18. As a result, he'll need many turns to set up Sharpen before he begins sweeping with Tackle. On the first turn, Spearow negates his setup with Growl, so that's just wasted time. Then Spearow uses Fury Attack, another move that takes forever. Luckily, it only hits twice. Peck follows, and then right before Vanman finishes his setup, Spearow uses Fury Attack again, and it lasts for its full duration, taking Porygon all the way down to 15 hit points. Because it's moving first, the bird gets another chance to attack. It uses Peck and takes Porygon into the red. This is not good. Vanman didn't save before this fight, and the sand attacking demon is up next. Porygon uses Tackle, gets a critical hit, and this does less damage in this case. Sandshrew uses its sand and blinds the digital duck. I can't imagine how much adrenaline this fight must have caused. Porygon knocks out the Sandshrew, but Rattata's next, and it knows Quick Attack. And it moves first anyways, but it uses Tail Whip, fails, and then feints to a single tackle. All that remains is the Eevee. Is he gonna do it? Eevee uses Growl, looks like it, but Porygon misses. Eevee uses Tail Whip, giving Porygon another chance, but it gets a critical hit. It has less than an 8% chance, and it's got 2 of those in this fight. The rival fails to knock out Porygon for a 3rd time, and Vanman finally emerges victorious. So that was a really bad start to the fight, and then a really nice lucky finish. I've mentioned that the trainers on Nugget Bridge are pretty frustrating to battle with Porygon. The 2 Nidoran female that follow the Pidgeys, that can sand attack you by the way, yeah, they're really bad, but of all of these, the Mankey trainer is the worst. Vanman arrives at him at level 20. The Pig Monkey outspeeds, uses Scratch, luckily, and then Porygon does what looks like half damage. You have to pray that it's just not going to use Low Kick here, which can actually cause you to flinch in this generation. It scratches again, and Vanman takes victory. This trainer actually ended one of my initial playthroughs, and he's undoubtedly the most frustrating Nugget Bridge trainer. Now, one thing I want to mention about Vanman's routing here is that it's going to make Misty very consistent, but it also makes all these trainers so much slower. Against the Hiker, he requires setup with Sharpen, and even then, he can't one-hit all of the Pokemon. After the fight, he's also got to heal with items before he can proceed with the route. I realized this problem of slow battles during my practice, and I found a solution. If I go to Misty's gym first, I can face her at level 19. I tested this with my regular method of consistency testing, and Porygon won 9 out of 10 times. The important move here is conversion, because becoming a water type makes Misty use only Tackle and Harden. Against Staryu, I set up 6 Sharpens, and after that it's a 2-hit. I level up to 20 and move on to Starmie with 23 health remaining. X defend first turn. It misses Tackle second turn, finally hits me on the third turn, and I take it into KO range. And then Starmie gets a critical hit. I got a huge hit of adrenaline here because I didn't save before this fight, but luckily for me today, Porygon survives and knocks the Starmie out. The advantage of facing Misty first is that I face the rival now at a higher level. I only require 2 Sharpens before I can sweep his entire team. This gives the Spearow less time to annoy me with things like Leer and Fury Attack. But the real reason is not to make this rival easier, it's actually because I want Porygon to learn Psybeam at level 23 as soon as possible. It's really going to speed up this next route significantly. Unfortunately, my routing doesn't give me Psybeam before the Mankey trainer, but I am at a higher level, so this fight's more consistent just because of that. I learn it just before the Hiker, and that makes both of his Pokemon one-shots. The next section of the route has several optional trainers which I'm going to face. I've got my eyes set on Recover, and I want all the experience that I can get in this phase of the game. Plus, Psybeam makes most of the trainers quick to defeat. Speedrunner has a third approach though. Yes, we actually all use different strategies in this phase of the game. He chooses to face Misty just like I did, however, he uses 2 rare candies before facing the mandatory junior trainer in front of her. This means that he's level 21 for Misty, massively improving his consistency over mine. Funnily enough, Starmie still gets him all the way down to 4 hit points, so even 2 levels higher, there's a chance that Misty can win. But the real strength of this approach is that Porygon now has enough experience to learn Psybeam on the trainer that immediately follows the rival. With it, he speeds through Nugget Bridge, one-shotting all the poison types in his way. Because he did Nugget Bridge first, Vanman is the last of us to face Misty. However, he's level 22 for this fight and he hasn't used any rare candies yet. He clocks in with a time of 17 minutes and 12 seconds. It appears that he's significantly behind, but remember, this time includes Nugget Bridge, while Speedrunner and I haven't attempted it yet. We'll see how everything stands once we all finish Surge. Checking in with our other competitors, no one else is managing to keep pace. And I also want to mention, because it boosts my ego, that I've actually taken the lead in the Misty split. I'm really just hoping that I can hang on to it until Surge. Now, I want to examine something interesting. Because Vanman chose to do Nugget Bridge and then Misty, he arrives at the Rocket at level 23. This forces him to use Sharpen 4 times to ensure that the Drowsy is a one-hit, so that he avoids Hypnosis. Because I spent time over-leveling with optional fights, I take the Rocket on at level 25. At this level, I only need 2 uses of Sharpen to one-hit the Drowsy. Speedrunner, however, arrives here at level 25 as well, without having to do any optional fights. The downside of his approach is obviously that he has 2 less rare candies for the late game. I wonder if this choice is going to ruin his late game chances, or if it's propelled him into a lead that both Vanman and I will struggle to overtake. Only time will tell. Now, Vanman and Speedrunner both have the same approach to the next section of the game. They defeat the mandatory trainers with the addition of the Gentleman on the SSN. The rare candy here is really important. The rival here is also very easy. This is the case in most solo playthroughs. After stomping him, they both have to decide how they want to approach Surge. I, on the other hand, do things a bit differently in here. I fight a few mandatory trainers on the SSN. The reason is that I want level 28 when I face Surge, so that Porygon has to recover. You'll notice that I replaced Tackle with Recover, and I kept Conversion and Sharpen. This is intentional. Conversion turn 1 against Surge makes Porygon an electric type. Because Raichu's very scary, has a high crit rate, and outspeeds me, I want to heal every time it does damage to me with Recover. I really want full health to make this fight consistent. When I do have full health, I strike back with Psybeam and wait for him to use things like Growl or X-Speed. The advantage of Psybeam is that it can occasionally cause confusion as well, and that sometimes speeds the fight up. I spent a lot of time thinking about this fight because I didn't want to reset here, and this is honestly the most consistent strategy that I could come up with. I did try Thunder Wave in combination with Recover, and it's really good, but I'm going to be saving that move for later instead. I end up clocking in with a time of 21 minutes and 2 seconds. Outside of Surge's gym, Speedrunner once again uses a rare candy. And this time it levels him up to level 28 where he learns Recover without having to face any additional trainers on the SSN. Notably, he replaces Conversion. This fight against Surge is short anyways, so if he has to reset, it wouldn't waste too much time. He ends up clocking in with a time of 19 minutes and 47 seconds, with no resets. Vanman goes into this fight at level 25 instead, with Thunderwave as his solution. Since he doesn't have access to recover, this fight will be less consistent, but he has saved 3 rare candies for later on in the playthrough. First turn, Raichu hits a massive Thunderbolt, taking Porygon to less than half health before Vanman paralyzes it. Unfortunately, a couple turns later, Raichu uses Mega Punch, gets a crit, and finishes Porygon off. By the way, all 3 of us saved before this fight. On the next fight, Raichu hits a massive crit with Thunderbolt, taking Porygon down to 10 hit points. Surge ends up victorious again. The third fight also ends in defeat for Vanman, and I'm sure that this was really frustrating in the moment. Finally, on the fourth fight, things align and he's able to defeat the Electric Mouse, clocking in with a time of 22 minutes and 43 seconds. Speedrunner is in the lead again. I trail by 1 minute and 15 seconds, and Vanman is 2 minutes and 56 seconds behind. I was curious how much time Vanman lost here because of resets, and it ends up being 51 seconds. So he's still over 2 minutes behind us with his strategy. You may have noticed in my more recent videos that I've started to use the bike to travel around faster. And I have to give credit where credit is due, and this is entirely because of Speedrunner. He posted in the Discord that he uses the bike to move around faster and that it isn't too hard to control at 4 times speed. Honestly, I had just assumed that it would be because my movement was already bad walking around, but it turns out he's correct. The bike is actually useful to move around quickly. Vanman is the only one of the 3 of us that decides not to use it. For a rock tunnel, he uses Psybeam and Tackle to make his way through all the trainers. Both Speedrunner and I take a different approach. We teach Porygon Thunderbolt to make the Slowpoke simple one-hits. Now, we've reached that moment where our paths diverge entirely. The mid-game opens up many different options for Porygon. Swift, Psychic, Ice Beam, Tri-Attack, Thunderbolt, Double Edge, and Agility. Beyond that, each of us needs to answer the key question: to badge boost or not to badge boost. If we are going to badge boost, are we going to use Sharpen, are we going to use Agility, or are we going to use both? Another question is, are we going to invest in physical or special moves? Physical moves are great because they're normal types, they also get stab, and in this case we would focus on buying vitamins like proteins. Or are we going to focus on special moves for the type diversity, and of course Porygon's base special is higher. Vanman heads to the department store and grabs the TM for Tri-Attack, which he immediately teaches to Porygon. Next, he goes to Saffron City and upgrades Psybeam to Psychic. I really like this moveset because it has a stab move that's physical, a badge boosting move, a reliable recovery move, and a powerful special move that's going to be super effective against the plentiful poison types. With this moveset, he easily defeats the rival in Pokemon Tower, and then the advantage of it can really be seen against the Ghastly here. They're all single hits because of Psychic. The Jesse and James fight at the top of the tower isn't as easy as it is in most playthroughs though, and here Arbok paralyzes Porygon with Glare, and then Weezing gets a massive critical hit. Luckily for Vanman, he manages to win without a reset. After that, he heads to the Safari Zone, picks up some vitamins, and then heads back to Erica's gym. Here he defeats the trainers surrounding Erica for additional experience. After all, he has Psychic, making these optional fights fast and painless. Next is Erica. She opens with Tangela. Vanman sets up Sharpen a total of 6 times. The nuisance fighting Tangela though is that it can use Bind, wasting a lot of time, or it can use Constrict and lower Porygon's speed, allowing Weepinbell and Gloom to outspeed and use Sleep Powder. With his setup complete, Vanman heals with 2 turns of Recover and then knocks Tangela out with a single Tri-Attack. Because his speed wasn't lowered, he moves first and one-shots the Weepinbell. The Gloom follows suit. He clocks in with a time of 35 minutes and 17 seconds. Now Vanman heads to Silph to face the rival. Before he does though, he uses rare candies on Porygon. With this level boost, Psychic 2-shots the Sandslash, allowing him to avoid too many turns sitting around waiting for it to use Sand Attack. Against Ninetales, he sets up 1 Agility, which is a pretty good choice because this Firefox doesn't have a particularly good moveset. A potential hazard though could be Burn, but it doesn't occur. Cloyster's next. He sets up 2 Agilities here, and Cloyster unfortunately lowers his attack with Aurora Beam. Because of that, the following Kadabra survives, but it just uses Recover and faints anyways. Jolteon is last. And in a truly unfortunate moment, his Porygon gets a Gen 1 miss. The rival's Double Kick does a lot of damage, Tri-Attack does just under half, and then Jolteon gets a crit with Double Kick, taking Porygon down to a single hit point with the first hit and finishing it off with the second. That was a lot of bad luck. What really mattered here is that Cloyster lowered his attack with Aurora Beam, making the Jolteon a 3-hit instead of a 2-hit. In the next fight, we can clearly see that he has planned this fight out so that the Jolteon's going to be a 2-hit. And with that, he's moving on to Giovanni. And today, with a normal type like Porygon, Giovanni isn't the easiest trainer to face. But Vanman has Psychic, and it knocks Nidorino out in a single hit. He sets up against Persian, recovers on Rhyhorn, and finishes it with Psychic. Nidoqueen is last. It does a lot of damage with Double Kick, but Psychic is just too much. In Koga's gym, Vanman does some extra training. It's a good place to do it because his moveset with Tri-Attack and Psychic make all these fights quick. It's time for Koga. Psychic one-shots the first 3 Venonats, leading to Venomoth. This poison type is fast, but it only uses Leech Life, Psychic does half, and then the Moth starts to set up double team. But Vanman's Porygon remembers how bad missing feels, and it aims its next 2 Psychics perfectly. He clocks in with a time of 42 minutes and 24 seconds. I asked Vanman how he figured out this routing in the mid-game, and here's what he had to say.
Well, it was pretty easy for me considering that because I was so committed to Psychic, that all of the Pokemon in Erica's gym were one-shots. And so Erica's gym was a quick way to level up for experience.
Speedrunner takes a different approach. After the tunnel, he grabs Swift immediately and teaches it to Porygon. This is a great normal type move. In the department store, he makes the radical choice and sells Ice Beam for money. He uses that money to buy vitamins, but selling Ice Beam always feels kinda weird. Because Speedrunner didn't catch a Pidgey in Viridian Forest, he has to catch his Flyer now. Vanman also had to do this, by the way. After that, it's time for the rival in Pokemon Tower. Speedrunner sets up 2 Sharpens, and that's enough for him to sweep the rival's entire team only using Swift. Not having Psychic at this point in the game, though, means that Porygon can't one-hit the Ghastly, so Speedrunner saves in front of the first Chandler. They have annoying confusion tactics, and paired with Nightshade, which actually hits normal-type Pokemon in Gen 1, they're a little bit of a worry, but he ends up taking the victories with ease. With the tower behind him, he heads south to the Safari Zone. After that, he digs back to Celadon and then faces Erica. And he doesn't stop to train in her gym at all. The combination of Sharpen and Recover allows him to set up fully against the Tangela. Swift knocks it out in a single hit. Constrict didn't lower his speed, so he moves first against the Weepinbell and the Gloom and takes both of them down in a single hit. Then he flies back to Fuchsia City and goes head-to-head with Koga at only level 35. It's key to note that he gets poisoned on the Juggler right before Koga to prevent the Venonat from putting him to sleep. Because of that, he can avoid status conditions and set up Agility and Sharpen in peace, using Recover to heal along the way. This strategy is great because Agility ensures that his Porygon is going to move first against most of Koga's team. Sharpen then ensures that his Swift is going to deal massive damage to every member of the team. All the Venonats end up being one-hits, except the Venomoth. The downside here is that Psychic could have lowered his Porygon special along the way, and then Venomoth could one-hit him with a Psychic. But today, it doesn't use Psychic, it chooses Double Team instead. Swift bypasses accuracy checks, so it knocks Venomoth out, and Speedrunner clocks in with a time of 32 minutes and 28 seconds. My strategy is quite similar to Speedrunner's, but I do things in a different order. Instead of grabbing Swift right away, I head to Celadon and do errands in the department store. I also don't sell Ice Beam, I'm going to be using it later. I fly to Lavender Town and then I pick up Swift. I do it in this order so that I can fly back to Lavender Town after obtaining the TM instead of having to bike all the way back. I take care of Pokemon Tower, and with that out of the way, Erica's gym is next. Here, I do face some of the trainers to level Porygon up to level 35 when it learns Agility. I want this move to ensure that I'm going to outspeed the Weepinbell and the Gloom, even if Tangela lowers my speed with Constrict. You'll also notice that I'm going into this fight poisoned. I want that so that I can avoid sleep. It's worth it at all costs. I do think that this might be a little bit of overkill though, because with Agility, I'm probably just going to outspeed the Weepinbell and the Gloom anyways. Saffron City is my next destination. Here, I make use of Psybeam while it's on my moveset to knock out the trainers in the dojo. This is a great location to train for stat experience as well as regular experience, because the trainers are all so closely grouped together. With that out of the way, I buy some more vitamins and head south to Fuchsia City. This gives me access to more vitamins in the Safari Zone, another rare candy in the Warden's house, and then finally I fly back to Saffron and get more of both in Silph. At level 40, I take on the rival here. My moveset is the same as the one that Speedrunner used against Koga. Agility ensures that I outspeed the rival's team members, and Sharpen powers up Swift enough to one-shot most of them, with the exception of Sandslash and Cloyster. The complicating factor here is that Sandslash is terrible to set up on. While Sand Attack is basically a free turn, Slash is a forced use of Recover because it deals so much damage. Making matters worse is Poison Sting, which poisons me, and this is really bad because the following Cloyster knows Clamp. but I've planned for this. Being level 40, I do enough damage to Cloyster, and it sometimes triggers a potion. This occurs today, and from there I sweep the remainder of his team and emerge victorious. Now, I don't like saying this very much, but Giovanni and Silph is actually surprisingly difficult in this playthrough. He has good AI, so Nidorino only uses double kick. Its critical hit rate makes this scary as well. Every time I'm just above half health, I have to heal and then resume my setup. This is tedious and takes so long, but finally I'm ready to sweep. Nidorino goes down from a single swift, Persian is also a one-hit, Rhyhorn obviously isn't a one-hit, but it doesn't pack a very strong stomp, and Porygon survives with nice health. Nidoqueen is last, it knows double kick, and I only have 2 PP left. Am I gonna lose because of PP problems? I use Swift, and Nidoqueen faints from a single hit. Okay, no PP problems today. The reason I did Silph before Koga is actually because I want to face Sabrina next, and I want to face her with a combination of Swift, Sharpen, and Agility, because it makes her completely trivial, like this is actually a free win. I set up Agility to outspeed her entire team, then I use Sharpen to make them all one-hits. After that, I sweep, because Abra's Flash has no effect on Porygon when I'm using Swift. I clock in with a time of 44 minutes and 15 seconds. Do notice that I've labeled this gym Gym 5, because some of us, like Vanman and Speedrunner, fought Koga, and I fought Sabrina instead. However, facing Sabrina first isn't obviously the best choice. Facing Koga first does have its clear advantages. Speedrunner's battle against the Silph rival is clear evidence of that. But before we watch it, I want to mention some things and some small optimizations from his playthroughs. He grabs Strength right after Koga, and that eliminates one use of Fly, speeding up his run. He heads to the mansion next because he has access to Surf, and then obtains additional items. This also means that when he digs out of here, he's teleported back to Celadon, and he can immediately bike to Saffron, which he hasn't set the waypoint for yet. So this is really efficient. Then he hightails it to the rival. One thing to mention is that inventory management is incredibly important in Generation 1. It can really slow a playthrough down if you're trying to pick up a key item like the card key and you just have no space in your inventory for it. Speedrunner chose to never deposit items, and instead he's just using items and selling items so that he has enough space. In Silph he pays for this because he has to drop the Pokédoll, and he wants this for Mimic. I do actually think there's a solution for this, and I'm going to mention that in another video in the future, so stay tuned. Against the rival, he has the same moveset that I did, but he's 6 levels lower, and he has a much faster time. And he also has the additional advantage that Koga's badge gives, so his Porygon has 12.5% more speed. Still, he has to set up completely against the Sandslash, and this takes a while. But he doesn't get poisoned, lucky guy, and then he sweeps. At a lower level, the Giovanni fight is even worse than it was for me. The main issue is that Nidoqueen now doesn't faint to a single hit. But Giovanni knows that this is a speedrun, and he grants Speedrunner a gift of a guard spec, just to help out, I guess. Because Speedrunner has the same moveset, he's also going to have a free Sabrina fight. He clocks in against her with a time of 40 minutes and 2 seconds. This guy is so fast. His Porygon is very appropriately named Speed. After Koga, Vanman heads to the mansion and picks up all the vitamins. After that, he heads to Sabrina's gym, and he chooses to face a bunch of trainers here. While I chose the dojo, he chooses this gym. It's key to note that going into the Sabrina fight, he doesn't actually have Swift. When I interviewed him about his run, he mentioned that it wasn't even on his radar until he had invested heavily into this approach to the game. However, he solves this fight in another way. Using Psychic to get Koga's badge first gives him the speed boost, and after that he used rare candies in Silph to boost his level even further. Now, having trained in Erica's gym and Sabrina's, his Porygon is the highest level out of all of ours. He only needs 1 agility. First turn, Abra gets a successful flash off, but Vanman's Tri-Attack still hits. Kadabra's next. Tri-Attack misses, Psywave connects, does very little damage as usual, and then Tri-Attack gets the job done. Alakazam is last. Tri-Attack misses, Psywave does good damage, I guess that can happen. And then he misses again, allowing the Alakazam to finish Porygon off. On the next fight, Abra misses its flash, and with that, Vanman is set up and ready for success. He sweeps the Abra and Kadabra with ease and arrives at Alakazam. It survives Tri-Attack, Sabrina uses an X-Defend, but this isn't enough and Alakazam goes down. Next is Blaine. He sends out Ninetales and Vanman sets up 2 agilities. After that, he's ready. With the badge boost triggered twice, Tri-Attack is a 2-hit range for the Ninetales. Rapidash is next. Porygon recovers, and Rapidash growls. So now he's using Psychic because his attack stat's been lowered, and he lowers Rapidash's special in the process. It fails a growl, and then the Flaming Horse faints. Blaine's ace Arcanine is last. Psychic does around 1/5, and then Arcanine's Flamethrower does massive damage, putting Porygon in the red with a critical hit. Vanman has to use Recover. But Arcanine really wants to finish the fight. It chooses Fire Blast and takes Porygon back into the red. This repeats again, but finally Vanman gets into green health and continues to attack with Psychic. Arcanine is clearly confused at this point. It uses Reflect 2 turns in a row, and that's it. So when I asked Vanman which gym leader was the hardest to figure out, here's what he had to say.
Yeah, well, the hardest one to figure out was definitely Giovanni.
And when I asked Speedrunner this same question, here's what he had to say.
That would have to be a tie between Blaine and Giovanni.
One thing about the Giovanni fight that's key is that the Dugtrio has Fissure and it outspeeds Porygon. This allows it to use Fissure and one-shot you. Unfortunately for Vanman, this happens in his very first fight. Things play out differently though in the next fight. He sets up Agility twice, knocks Dugtrio out, and then takes care of Persian over 2 turns. Nidoqueen gets a Guard Spec, making it a free KO, but Nidoking kicks Porygon and forces a Recover. He takes it out, and then against the Rhydon, he uses Agility one more time. I assume this is for the badge boost so that his special and defense are raised. The Rhino's Earthquake does a lot of damage and forces a heal. But then Guard Spec and Horn Drill do nothing, and Vanman clocks in with a time of 50 minutes and 54 seconds. He only has one fight left before the league. This requires a bit of luck because he's banking on Blizzard to connect against Sandslash and Execute. It misses turn 1, but Sandslash uses Swift, Porygon tanks it well, and then Vanman gets 2 Blizzards that he needs and moves on to the Ninetales. He uses Agility once, Ember doesn't burn, and he takes it out with 2 Tri-Attacks. This experience levels Porygon up to level 52, resetting the badge boosts. And then against Cloyster, Vanman sets up 2 more Agilities, re-establishing the boosts. Psychic takes the Shellfish out in 2 hits. Kadabra surprisingly survives a Tri-Attack, but it doesn't do any damage before it faints. Jolteon is last. It survives, uses Thunder Wave, cuts Porygon's speed, Thunder does a lot of damage, and then the rival finishes him off with Pin Missile. On the next fight, the Jolteon decides to use Agility instead, and with that, Vanman's off to the league at a time of 53 minutes and 12 seconds. Heading back to my playthrough, I still have to take Koga on, and I did Sabrina first because I wanted Sharpen and Agility combo, and I'm going for Koga after because I want Thunder Wave for him. I want to paralyze the first Venonat to improve the reliability of my setup. Preserving my special stat is key because I want to be able to tank 1 hit from the Venomoth. And it's actually the only Pokemon on his team that can outspeed me. This fighting type is brutal for Porygon to face, but it decides to set up Double Team instead, thankfully, and I use Swift and knock it out in a single turn. Speedrunner teaches Thunder Wave for Blaine. So we're both back at the same moveset again. The difference is that he's going into this fight at level 41. He paralyzes Ninetales and knocks it out with Swift. After that, he paralyzes Rapidash and sets up his Sharpens here. This is because Ninetales has Confuse Ray and Tail Whip, which both make setting up Sharpen much more dangerous. After that, he attacks Arcanine without Thunder Wave, and it does more than half. Arcanine uses Takedown, Porygon survives, and with that, it clocks in with a time of 41 minutes and 41 seconds. In contrast, my level 48 Porygon actually gets taken out by Blaine's Rapidash because it outspeeds. This is my first reset of the run. On the second fight, everything plays out according to plan, and I take the victory. I want to say that this fight was one of the hardest in the run for many of us to figure out. Vanman said that Blaine was the fight that had the most resets, Speedrunner mentioned that Blaine was a challenge, and I also had really bad luck against him on my first playthrough. And believe me, the frustrations of Blaine don't end here, but that's a story for my follow-up video, so please check it out. Yeah, consider yourself teased. Against Giovanni, I'm really proud of my strategy. Speedrunner and I were chatting about how awful he was in the Discord chat while I sat in bed with my girlfriend. I had kept losing over and over to Giovanni for like 5 minutes in a row, and he was responsible for so many suboptimal finishes for me up to that point. I knew that solving Dugtrio's Fissure was impossible, but the problem after that was that his Pokemon were too high leveled. I just couldn't knock them out fast enough. Porygon doesn't output enough damage with Ice Beam, Blizzard's inaccurate and has a tiny PP, Psychic isn't super effective against Rhydon, and Persian's speed in combination with Slash prevents reliable setup. That means if I want to set up, I need to set up against Dugtrio or Nidoqueen, both of which are bad options. And then it came to me, sitting in bed fixating on the Porygon run, clearly the most important thing in my life. And I remembered that these are the rules. Yeah, these rules. These are the rules that I sent to everyone at the start of the competition. They allow for the use of Double Team if I obtain it by using Mimic. I can steal it from Persian, cross my fingers, and hope that I can set up. If I get the Double Team set up, then I have all the time I need to set up Sharpen. Unfortunately, Giovanni knocks me out in the first fight, so great, but in the second fight, I get set up. Now this is key because losing against the Dugtrio or the Persian is actually a better result than losing against the Rhydon, because if you lose to the Rhydon, then you've wasted more time than you would have if you just lost to the Dugtrio when it used Fissure. Swift does decent damage, but the Rhino actually hits with Rock Slide. 6 double teams and a rock move does damage? Yeah, right. So that's weird. I heal up. Rhydon's Earthquake also connects. So I heal again, but from there I get the luck that I need and I knock the Rhydon out, completing the gym challenge at 52 minutes and 57 seconds. Now, despite this being a ruthless competition, a lot of us shared ideas about how to approach various points in the game with each other. Again, Skillshare's the sponsor. Some people like Vanman even streamed all of their attempts. It was really fun watching along with these. When I figured out this approach, I sent Speedrunner these messages, knowing that he was also struggling with the Giovanni fight. He arrives at the gym much faster than I did because his mid-game rooting is honestly Venomoth tier. I've actually studied it while making this video, and I hope that I can apply it in some of my other videos coming up in the future. So thanks man for teaching me so much about these games. After taking care of the mandatory trainers in the gym, he buys some items and then uses his remaining rare candies to get his Porygon all the way up to level 48. And then he makes use of the Mimic double team strategy, slamming Giovanni into the ground on his first attempt, clocking in at a time of 45 minutes and 22 seconds. No resets. Wow, this is a great time. For the final rival, he teaches Porygon Blizzard in the place of Mimic. After setting up completely with Sharpen, he one-shots the Sandslash and the Execute with Blizzard. Cloyster's a 2-hit with Swift, and from there he sweeps, clocking in with a time of 46 minutes and 35 seconds. I take a slightly different approach here. Instead, I keep Mimic, I set up on the Sandslash, and then I rely on Swift for the entire fight. It's enough, and I clock in with a time of 54 minutes and 24 seconds. So let's review the splits before we go into the league. Speedrunner's in first place with an outstanding time of 46 minutes and 35 seconds. Vanman's in second place with 53 minutes and 12 seconds. He's trailing Speedrunner by 6 minutes and 37 seconds. I'm in third place, trailing Speedrunner by 7 minutes and 50 seconds. Looking at the numbers, it appears that it's a race for second place. However, it's worth remembering that Speedrunner has used all of his rare candies, but Vanman and I still have some remaining. Just a quick note, there is 1 rare candy in Victory Road, so Speedrunner does have 1 at this point. Also, we all ended up taking different strategies in the league, so it still might be anyone's race. I go into the fight against Lorelei with the same moveset that I had for Giovanni and the final rival. I used 1 rare candy before the fight to ensure that I won't be leveling up during it. Dugong's easy to set up against, and I get all my Sharpens in here. And then I accidentally Mimic Takedown. Whoops. It wouldn't be one of my playthroughs without a serious misplay somewhere in there. This was actually an issue in this playthrough because I really wanted to mimic Amnesia from Slowbro to set up before the Lapras and the Jinx. With a higher special stat, I can tank their ice moves better, giving Porygon the time it needs to knock everything out with Swift. Today, I'll just have to cross my fingers. Jinx is a 1-hit with a crit, Lapras is last, I get another crit, Hydro Pump hits me, Porygon survives, and then I get 1 more Swift, and that's all I need. Hiker time. For him, I teach Porygon Psychic. I've held onto it for this long, and I finally get to use something other than Swift. I still dig with Mimic and set up Sharpen. This is for the badge boosts, but it's also for the attack boosts. However, it ends up not mattering because the Hiker's Pokemon are weak and I sweep through all of them with ease. Just a note, because I didn't end up using Dig in this fight, I actually specifically mimicked it because I wanted it in combination with Sharpen against Machamp if I ended up leveling up and resetting my badge boosts. Machamp has decent special, so I didn't want to use Psychic against it if I didn't have any boosts at all. Agatha normally would be scary, but I kept Mimic this long so that she would be easy. I steal Substitute, and then she switches to Golbat. So yeah, that's a reset. There's a bug that permanently removes one of your moves if you use Mimic and the opponent switches. In the second fight, I steal Substitute and then I set up. Sharpen raises my attack and Confusion deals damage based on the attack stat. So Substitute eliminates Confusion from the equation and it gives Porygon the time to set up. I also used a rare candy before the start of this fight, so that's why I'm not leveling up and I can use Psychic to just sweep her entire team with ease. Lance is last. For him, I replaced Psychic with Tri-Attack, another powerful TM that I held onto for this long. I set up on Gyarados. This is risky because it can crit with Hyper Beam or with Hydro Pump, or it can use Leer and lower my defense and then just attack with Hyper Beam. However, I successfully get my setup off, steal Hyper Beam, and use it to knock Gyarados out. Tri-Attack's enough to manage both the Dragonairs. For Aerodactyl and Dragonite, I use Hyper Beam, and it makes both of them a 1-hit. I clock in with a time of 1 hour, 1 minute, and 15 seconds. So I just want to take a moment here and mention that so many of us in the Discord chat were talking about, is it possible for Porygon to do this under an hour? And a lot of us thought that it was possible, me included. And unfortunately today, I'm not going to be getting a sub-hour time. I just couldn't do it. But believe me, I wanted this sub-hour finish so badly. So badly that I'm releasing another video on Porygon. So we're going to have to see if I was able to do it with another month of work. This playthrough was extremely punishing. It hurts me still. Vanman is playing a contrasting style to mine because he's using agility. He's held on to the TM for Thunderbolt, and now he uses it against Lorelei. At Dugong, he sets up 3 agilities and then starts to attack with Thunderbolt. It doesn't knock the seal out in a single hit, but it does take care of the Cloyster. Slowbro is taken into low health, and Lorelei uses a potion, giving him a free knockout. For Jinx, Tri-Attack is a simple KO, and Lapras is all that's left. So far, a straightforward and easy fight. 2 Thunderbolts is all that it takes. Before Bruno, before the Hiker, he uses a rare candy. He fully sets up agility on the first Onix and then sweeps this awful team of rock and fighting types with Psychic. It's time for Agatha. He isn't using Mimic strats here, so confusion can be really annoying. He manages to get fully set up and start the sweep. Psychic for the Ghosts, Thunderbolt for the Golbat, it has 5 extra power after all, and then he finishes the sweep, moving on to Lance with a sub-hour time. He teaches Ice Beam over Psychic and then faces the Dragon Master. Now, check this fight out. First turn, Gyarados outspeeds, connects with Hyper Beam, does so much damage, taking Porygon down to 11 hit points with a crit. Vanman uses agility twice, capitalizing on Gyarados' need to recharge, and then he starts the sweep. Is it going to be enough? Thunderbolt KOs the Gyarados, Ice Beam knocks out Dragonair 1 and Dragonair number 2, Aerodactyl's next, but agility makes Porygon faster, allowing Ice Beam to connect and knock it out. Dragonite's last. He outspeeds and takes it down. He clocks in with a time of 58 minutes and 46 seconds. He's cutting it really close, but the sub-hour finish is still possible. Before we see if he can do it, how will Speedrunner approach the league? He goes into the Lorelei fight with Swift as his damage dealing move. I'm not entirely sure what happened here, but he just tries to knock the Dugong out right away and then resets. That's his first reset of the entire playthrough. Before reattempting, he uses a rare candy. I think he reset because he forgot it and realized it when it was too late. With the additional level, he comes back and sets up on the Dugong. After 3 sharpens, he takes it out. Cloyster's next. Here, he sets up the rest of his sharpens. He is probably trying to avoid Dugong's attack and speed drops that it can get with Aurora Beam and Bubble Beam. With full setup, he's able to speed his way to victory against the rest of her Pokemon. The Hiker is next, and you'll notice that Speedrunner doesn't have Psychic on his moveset. Yeah, he just forgot it. He didn't actually forget it in Saffron, he did pick it up there, but it's a painful realization that he didn't teach it going into this fight. Luckily, the Hiker's awful, and Swift and Blizzard are more than enough to put him in his place. Agatha's next. For her, he goes on the offense right away, spamming Psychic. Unfortunately, Arbok traps him in a wrap and finishes Porygon off. That's the second reset that he's got, and the first time that Porygon's actually been knocked out. For the second fight against her, he changes his approach by setting up Sharpen against the first Gengar. Gotta watch out for confusion now though, because he doesn't have Substitute. He hits himself several times, but the scariest part of this fight is when the final Gengar uses Hypnosis and puts Porygon to sleep. But it isn't snoozy, wants to go fast, wakes up, and takes the victory. For Lance, he replaces Psychic with Tri-Attack. He sets up against Gyarados and then sweeps with Tri-Attack and Blizzard. The former for Gyarados and the Dragonairs, and the latter for the Aerodactyl and the Dragonites. He clocks in with a time of 54 minutes and 45 seconds. The sub-hour time looks very possible. So now, to just hype things up a little bit, when I was learning this playthrough, the champion was honestly one of the hardest fights for me. So, here's why. If you're not running agility, then Alakazam is going to outspeed you, and its Psychic is devastating. Because of that, I need to spend time setting up 6 Sharpens to boost my speed against Sandslash, and this comes with its risks. Slash does so much damage and it forces you to heal. Then, Poison Sting can poison you, and that makes the Cloyster a serious threat later on. Finally, Earthquake and Fury Swipes can get a critical hit and knock you out if you aren't at full health. Today, I get poisoned while setting up, and then I'm ready, I guess. Tri-Attack one-shot Sandslash. I now outspeed Alakazam with the badge boost and take it out in a single Tri-Attack. Executor is a one-hit with Tri-Attack, and so is Magneton. But Cloyster's what I'm really afraid of, especially when I'm poisoned, because it has Clamp. It uses it, misses, and I finish it off. Flareon isn't fast enough to outspeed, so Porygon moves first, even after leveling up, and I one-shot the Fire Doggo. I clock in with a final time of 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 53 seconds. My previous personal best before this run was 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 0 seconds, so I'm only 7 seconds faster. Honestly, I was not very happy with this. I really wanted the sub-hour time, but I filmed this on February 1st, and that's the deadline, so I had to use this footage. Vanman's moveset is so different for the champion fight, so let's see how it does. He's using Tri-Attack, Agility, Thunderbolt, and Ice Beam. Agility lets him solve the Alakazam problem, and it minimizes the time spent fighting the Sandslash. He knocks it out with Ice Beam, and then one-shots the Alakazam with Tri-Attack. Exeggutor survives, because of course it does, but it only uses Barrage before fainting. Remember that Vanman fought the optional rival now, so next is a lower level Cloyster, and he can KO it easily with Thunderbolt. Ninetales is second to last. Tri-Attack connects, does half damage, Ninetales tail whips, and then he moves on to Jolteon. His first attack does half, the Punkrock Doggo paralyzes Porygon with Thunder Wave, it moves first then with Pin Missile, Vanman strikes back with Tri-Attack, but it isn't quite enough. Jolteon quick attacks, Porygon moves, and Vanman celebrates. He clocks in with a time of 59 minutes and 51 seconds, a sub-hour finish when using Agility. Seriously, this is an awesome time, well done. But there's still one more competitor, so let's see if Speedrunner can beat this time. He's arrived at the champion faster, but he's at a lower level, and this might work against him. Against Sandslash, he takes the same approach that I do, set up with Sharpen and use Recover to heal. Once he's completed the setup, he uses Blizzard to knock the Sandslash out. Tri-Attack takes care of Alakazam and the following Exeggutor, but he levels up right before the Pineapple Tree. He manages the Magneton, but Cloyster finishes Porygon off. So that's a reset, and if he has to do any more of these here, time is going to catch up with him really quickly. Can he figure out a way to make this strategy work and accommodate for the mid-fight level up? Let's find out. On the next attempt, he begins setting up on Sandslash as usual, but this time he only uses 5 Sharpens instead of 6. He does this because then after he sweeps the Alakazam, he can use his 6th Sharpen on the Exeggutor, giving him a 12.5% boost to his speed. This lets him move first against the Magneton and finish it off in one hit. Cloyster's next. Tri-Attack does more than half, the champion uses Ice Beam, hopefully it doesn't freeze. It doesn't, and Tri-Attack does it. Flareon is last. Porygon moves first, uses Tri-Attack, and finishes the fight. Speedrunner 0218 wins the race with a time of 58 minutes and 26 seconds, proving that he is really a speedrunner. So today, he's our champion. That's an excellent performance and one that, aside from Vanman, no one else came close to touching. I take a distant third place, unfortunately not squeezing in under the hour mark. Behind me is Super Street 7 with a time of 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 29 seconds. Following that is Casey DeBoss and Rekia, who both got surprisingly close times, and in last place is the 1:8:25. I think that his 160 resets explains his extremely long time. However, he did finish at a very low level, the same level that Speedrunner finished the game at. Speedrunner and I both had the same number of resets, and Vanman had more, but I think that's largely because of his bad luck against Surge in the early game. Speedrunner also unfortunately forgot to save his game time, so we don't have a metric there. I'm already planning my next race video like this, and I'm really hoping that tons of you are going to submit awesome footage. I'd love as many people from the community to get involved as possible. If you don't think that your results are going to be competitive, I still might feature you in the video. Plus, if you come up with a truly memey strategy or something unique, I'll feature you just to show off how you did in the playthrough. I'm also daring someone to do a playthrough with only Bide. So yeah, I think of this more as a way for people to get involved in the community and try out challenge runs themselves, rather than a way to think that you need to be the fastest possible time. So when I announce the call for submissions, I really hope to see your playthroughs there. Now, I'm gonna get completely honest here. I couldn't let this run go. I had invested so much time trying to get Porygon under an hour, and I didn't do it by the deadline. The sunk cost fallacy was so strong in my mind, I got so obsessed. As a result, I spent the next month continuing to play Porygon. I swear I played this run hundreds of times. To conclude all the work that I did on this run, I'm releasing a follow-up video to this one where I show my entire final playthrough and explain my decision making as I go through it. It's going to be a nerdy and detailed video, and I'll hope that you'll watch it. So did I achieve the sub-hour time that I wanted, or was all this work for nothing? Porygon might have actually defeated me here, and yeah, it was hard. Anyways, you'll have to tune into that video to find out. Also, Vanman made a video on Porygon as well, so check it out to get more insight on the route that he used during this playthrough. It features agility prominently, so it's very different than my video. I've left the link to his content in the description. Because this video features other players, I'll wait to rank Porygon in my tier list for the follow-up video. Stay tuned. I haven't announced the next race yet, but stay tuned, so like, subscribe, and ring the chime echo so you'll be notified when I make a post about it. Also leave a comment because I gotta read them all, and this video took so much work, it consumed all my energy for over a month, so please let me know if you enjoyed it. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring the video. Also, a huge special thanks to Serena Vale for all of the custom art that she did for this video. All of the avatars and Porygons were all done by her. Really great job. And thanks to all the patrons who supported me while I worked on this video. It means the world to me. If you want exclusive content, a private Discord server, and a spot in the credits, check out the link below. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in the follow-up video.